All right. Hey, welcome to an LA Life podcast. It's a Wednesday, September 11th. It's crazy to think it's been 23 years since the 9/11 attacks in New York City. And if you're my age, older, younger, and you remember that, you remember where you were at. There are certain events in our life that we just remember. We don't forget them. And so anyways, that's not what I want to talk about, but it kind of moves into that same idea. Actually, let me just jump right in. Last weekend and this weekend, Missy and I have been a part of two events that you do remember. And the couples will remember them. Last weekend, we were in Chicago for a wedding up there, and I'm sure, right, that couple's going to remember that day. This weekend, we have another wedding that we're a part of, and this one's local. It's here in the Marion area, and I know that couple will also remember different parts of that day. I can go back now almost 34 years, and I can remember different things about Missy and I's wedding day. And you know, wedding days and weddings make us think about love. Love is in the air. And it makes me think about our Sunday sermon series, which has been in the book of 1 Corinthians all year. And we finally have made it to chapter 13. And chapter 13 is the way of love. And I want to share something today with you a little bit about this idea of love. And here's what I want to share with you. And here's what it says. To love better means we need to listen better. If we're going to love better, then we need to listen better. That's actually the sermon series for the next several weeks in chapter 13 is love better. And I want to talk about this idea of listening better. And I want to go to a story in John chapter 4, and it's Jesus and the woman at the well. Let me just read a little bit to you today. It says, "Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour." So we get the idea. Jesus is traveling. He goes through Samaria. You understand the ideas of Jews and Gentiles. They don't like each other. They wouldn't travel in those areas. But Jesus, being Jesus, right? He loves people, loves all people, and he wants to go to Samaria. He wants to go to this well because he knows he's going to meet this woman that's there. And here's the first thing that I want you to understand today when we talk about love better is to listen better. Here's the first thing. Jesus listened with tolerance. Jesus listened with tolerance. Let me jump down here to verse 9. And it says, "The Samaritan woman said to him, 'How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman from Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans.'" See, Jesus listened with tolerance to this woman. Let me explain tolerance to you. In other words, he allowed her to exist in his presence so that he could hear her and see her and notice her. This wasn't that Jesus had tolerance for her lifestyle or what she's done, but so don't miss that. But he listened with tolerance. He wanted to make sure that he was in her area, in her spot, in her place, and he could listen and he could give her a tolerance. In other words, he didn't judge her. He didn't point out all the things that she had done wrong yet. He didn't even ignore her. He simply listened with tolerance. Here's the second thing that we see in the story is Jesus listened with compassion. If we jump down here to verses 13 and 14, it says, "Jesus said to her, 'Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life.'" Jesus listened now with compassion. He knew that she physically needed something to drink. He knew that she spiritually needed something to drink. And he had compassion for her. And now not only does he listen with tolerance, now he listens with compassion, and he sees and knows what she needs, and he's going to offer her something to drink. Here's the third thing. He listened with grace. Let me jump down here to verse 16. And it says, Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you are right in saying, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Notice in our story, Jesus had love for this woman, and so he loved her and he listened with tolerance. He loved her and he listened with compassion, and he's going to give her water. And now he loves her and he listens with grace. You may not know this, but in this time that this is written, Jesus could have had that woman put to death because she'd had multiple husbands. Jesus could have, not just because he was Jesus, but because as a Jew, he could have said, I want this woman to be killed and stoned to death because she has had multiple husbands, but he doesn't do that. He listens and loves her with grace. Now, you'll have to read the rest of the story on your own, but here's what's incredible. Because of that grace and because of that compassion and tolerance, she then goes back into the town that she was trying to avoid, and she tells them about Jesus. And it tells us in the story that people came out to see Jesus and lives were changed. That never would have happened if Jesus doesn't show tolerance and compassion and grace. I don't know about you, but that's how I hope Jesus looks at me in my life. I hope that he looks at me with grace. I hope he looks at me with compassion. I hope he looks at me with tolerance, because that's what we all need in life. And so here's the challenge this week. As you go about your week today or this week, who is it in your life that needs you to look at them and listen to them with tolerance, compassion, and grace? You know, when you and I do this, as the Apostle Paul is going to tell us in chapter 13, when we show people that tolerance, compassion, and grace, we show them the way of love. That's chapter 13 in 1 Corinthians, is the way of love. If you're looking for a place to go this weekend, we're going to be here 9 o'clock, 10:30. We're going to continue in this series in 1 Corinthians. We're going to look this week at love is patient, love is kind. We're going to talk about the way of love. Hope you'll join us. Love you guys. Have a great day.